Daniel Dugan was a pilot who served in the Marine Corps for 13 years and rose to the rank of major before retiring in 2002. He founded an aviation company in Tasmania called Top Gun Australia and hired former Australian, British, and German Air Force pilots to offer flight training. He was arrested on October 21, 2022 by Australian police at the request of the FBI because of his training service to the Chinese military. Meanwhile, the UK's Defence Ministry issued an alert about 30 retired pilots of the British Royal Air Force and other branches being headhunted with large sums of money by the Chinese. These events revealed one brutal reality that the CCP's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, faces: the shortage of training resources and the lack of proper training for the Chinese military. Hello, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I'm Lei. 2 months after Dugan's arrest, the Australian government approved the request to extradite him to the U.S. Dugan faces 4 charges, including conspiracy to defraud the United States by unlawfully exporting defense services to China. An unsealed indictment alleged that Dugan and another 8 unnamed co-conspirators, including a former U.S. Navy officer, were involved in providing military services to China. Dugan and his co-conspirators are accused of seeking to defraud the U.S. government by deceit, craft, trickery, and dishonest means. The document reveals that the State Department emailed Dugan as early as 2008 to tell him that he needed to apply for written authorization in order to provide training to a foreign air force. Apparently, he ignored the warning and went ahead with his training service. When Dugan was arrested, Western media reported that Beijing has been courting retired Western Air Force officers who had operated stealth fighter jets. They were offered packages worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. CNBC reported that one former Australian Air Force pilot was being offered nearly $1 million a year to work for the PLA. Beijing is willing to spend money to hire Western military officers as instructors because the PLA has a serious talent drought and its internal training resources are inadequate. We recently confirmed this through the Chinese military's own press. The PLA Daily, the official newspaper affiliated with the CCP's Central Military Commission, made an unusual disclosure about the difficulty that PLA officers have in getting trained. On December 26, the paper reported the story of a deputy captain of the PLA Navy, Wang Yubing, who struggled to get his training completed. According to the report, the vessel used for training and other missions had to be constantly sent back to the shipyard for unspecified reason. With new ships being launched and old ships being decommissioned, the PLA has equipment and personnel shortage problems. Due to the uneven allocation of resources, conducting comprehensive training for commanders and other key officers of the Navy has been difficult, and full-scale training assessment has been difficult to schedule. The report said that this was an important factor contributing to Wang's not being able to initially pass his officer's test. To ensure effective use of training resources and to fill the training gap, the training ship organized deputy captains of other ships to take turns in training. They explored a training model that forces improvement by combining daily training with real combat, so the training ground is extended straight into the battlefield. Su Ziyun, the director of the Institute for Defense Strategy and Resources at Taiwan's National Defense Security Research Institute, said that the PLA media report shows that the military has been adding new hardware but hasn't caught up in training its personnel. Su said that it would take about 10 years for the Chinese PLA to develop modern combat capability by integrating equipment, personnel, and strategy. Li Zhenxiu, a researcher at the National Chenqi Foundation in Taiwan, said the PLA faces the problem of lacking skills and talent in modern warfare. Chinese families that have some money don't send their children into the military. Only young people from rural areas or poor regions choose to join the PLA. They are more obedient than urban youth, but require more technical training to master sophisticated combat equipment. But the PLA leaders, from the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission to the heads of the military theaters, did not receive modern military training. They are incapable of instructing lower-ranking officers in how to operate the increasingly sophisticated military technology. Li said that the vast majority of the Chinese weapons were cobbled together by copying American or Russian military technologies. Even the PLA's R&D staff may not fully understand the detailed functionalities of the equipment, so they are unable to do a good job training the soldiers. He believes that the CCP is fully aware of its weakness, and that the PLA daily article may be intentionally designed to show China's weakness to the United States and neighboring countries by saying, "Hey, look at us, we don't pose any threat." The CCP has relied on stealing trade secrets and technology in developing its military technology, but stealing technologies isn't enough. It also needs personnel who can operate, maintain, and apply the technology. The lack of talent is the real bottleneck that threatens the PLA. This is evident by the U.S. sanctioning of the export of advanced semiconductor technology to China in order to prevent military application. On October 7, 2022, the Biden administration announced controls that not only prohibit U.S. companies from exporting advanced chips and technology to China, but also prohibit U.S. nationals from supporting the development or manufacturing of chips covered by the restrictions. The personnel restriction, I think, has a huge impact on China's semiconductor industry and subsequently its military. Wei Shaoqun is the chairman of the IC design branch of the China Semiconductor Industry Association. He's also a professor at Tsinghua University's School of Integrated Circuits, or IC. 2 months before the sanctions, at the 2022 China IC Leadership Summit in August, Wei Shaoqun was beaming with confidence and said that China has a large group of IC companies with ever-improving quality, and that Chinese companies in the IC segment have entered the top 10 in their respective fields. This confidence was based on China's ability to access Western technology and talent. In December, however, Wei changed his tune. In his speech at the China IC Design Industry 2022 Annual Conference on December 26, he said that China has entered the era of being forced into accepting substitution with domestic products. In the face of the harsh sanctions, he cautioned the Chinese chip industry to avoid being overly confident. He said, "Don't be blindly optimistic that you can do anything." Talent drought and lack of training will continue to haunt the PLA and the regime. The CCP's policies and lack of respect for its citizens has prevented the PLA from providing appropriate training, as well as opportunities for personal development and growth of its servicemen. As a result, Beijing will continue using the promise of lucrative benefits to entice Western experts into working for them. Daniel Dugan was just interested in making some money. He allegedly wrote in a September 2012 email that he hoped his children would be set for life as a result. Dugan's wife called the charges as politically motivated injustice, arguing that her husband is a victim of the United States government's political dispute with China. I think Mrs. Dugan is correct in calling her husband's case political, but the party that made it political wasn't the U.S. government, it was the CCP. The Chinese Communist Party has this magic touch that turns everything political, from the coronavirus to a piece of white paper, and now to firecrackers. Everything becomes political in China. It's the CCP's ambition to rule the world that has made her husband a victim. I knew the chief executive of a small U.S. pharmaceutical company who was in between jobs in 2017. He was approached by a Chinese pharma and asked for my opinion if he should go work for the Chinese firm. I told him not to. The most important reason I gave was, Your China experience won't be a plus for your career, it's a minus. If I said this now, people would understand what I was saying. But 5 years ago, my view wasn't popular. What I meant was the experience you develop in China doesn't work in other parts of the world. It may be a liability for you. Those who become compliant with the CCP will lose their competitive advantage elsewhere. Working for the CCP requires different skill sets, of which some can be unethical. I know the CCP tries to get scientists and key opinion leaders to work for it. They have incentive programs such as the 1,000 Talent Plan. Please take my advice and don't go. Wait until the CCP is finished. When the CCP becomes history, I may go back to China as well. Let's hope the day isn't too far away. Thank you for watching. See you next time.